If you're a parent who works outside the home, you know the challenges that you find with trying to find childcare. Our Statehouse reporter Emily Longnecker says tonight that lawmakers are now looking at a bill that supporters say will give Indiana families better access.
Yeah, the bill's author, Republican Senator Ed Charbonneau, has framed this as an infrastructure issue, meaning basically for Indiana's economy to function, Hoosiers in the workforce who are parents need access to affordable childcare. Senate Bill 2 would increase the number of childcare workers by lowering the age of people who can work with kids from 21 to 18. 16 and 17-year-olds would be allowed to watch kids if supervised by someone who's at least 18. People who work in childcare would also have greater access to federal and state money to pay for their own childcare needs. The bill also creates a pilot program to create 3 micro childcare centers in rural areas. Supporters of Senate Bill 2 included several groups representing Indiana businesses.
We're having really great success with major manufacturing announcements in this state, and that has a knock-on effect to a lot of other businesses. One of the main thing that's going to limit our ability to take advantage of that growth is going to be a lack of a workforce, and child care is a critical element.
Child care access also at the top of Governor Eric Holcomb's agenda this session, as well as Democratic lawmakers, many who have called for universal child care. So again, this issue at the top of everyone's agenda this session. Senate Bill 2 passed out of committee today unanimously.
And the debate over a proposed tax exemption for expecting mothers. Should pregnant women be able to claim their fetus as a dependent?
Passionate testimony today, both for and against the idea. 13 News Statehouse reporter Emily Longnecker was in the meeting and joins us to explain how exactly this would work and what's next. Emily?
Well, this isn't the first time that Republican Senator Andy Zay has brought this bill forward. He did last session too, but the committee made clear that lawmakers would not take any action on this bill this session, and bringing it in front of lawmakers today was a way just to continue the conversation on this issue. Under Senate Bill 98, a fetus would be considered a dependent child, allowing for a $1,500 dependent child exemption at tax time. The person expecting the child would also qualify for a $1,000 personal exemption on their taxes. The bill's author says the person filing the exemption would need to get a doctor's signature verifying the pregnancy. In the case of a miscarriage or stillbirth, a person could still qualify for the deduction with proof of the pregnancy. Indiana Right to Life testified Tuesday in support of the bill, but said it should include an amendment requiring a pregnancy to be proven through a Social Security number or a fetal death certificate in the case of a miscarriage to help prevent fraud.
We believe that acknowledging children from conception helps create a culture of life in Indiana. And organizationally, we're really excited to see parents be rewarded for having children and to be encouraged to take good care of them.
Those against the bill called it intrusive, saying it would subject those who are pregnant to surveillance, possibly criminalizing them should something go wrong in the early stages of pregnancy.
This bill takes the state of Indiana another step towards criminalizing any behavior that is deemed to threaten a pregnancy, placing the rights of the fetus or embryo above the rights of the pregnant person.
Current Indiana law defines a fetus as an unborn child, no matter its gestational age or the length of the pregnancy. Supporters of the bill say that it supports families during pregnancy. Critics of the bill say it does nothing to address concerns of infant or maternal mortality rates or address maternal health care deserts they say exist in a third of the state. Again, lawmakers not expected to take any action on this bill this session, but say it will come up again.
So, what's the best way to make sure Hoosier kids are reading by the end of 3rd grade? That's a question lawmakers and education experts debated for 3.5 hours this afternoon at the Statehouse.
13 News Statehouse reporter Emily Longnecker was there for that debate, and she joins us now to discuss the bills that some lawmakers believe really will help. Emily.
Yeah, a lot of debate around Senate Bill 1 this afternoon. It calls for students taking the iRead test in 2nd grade instead of 3rd grade, which is the current requirement. The idea is to identify kids having reading problems earlier so they can get help sooner.
When 14,000 children are not reading by the end of 3rd grade, that's a crisis.
That's how Indiana's Secretary of Education, Dr. Katie Jenner, sees the current statistics, showing 1 in 5 Indiana students can't read by the end of 3rd grade. Jenner testified Wednesday on Senate Bill 1.
We're here for solutions. 14,000 is unacceptable.
According to Jenner, right now, some Indiana schools are giving the iRead test to second graders. Under Senate Bill 1, students who pass the test in second grade wouldn't have to take it again. Students who failed the test could get reading help in summer school before taking the iRead test again in third grade. If they failed the test again, they'd have 2 more chances to pass it before schools would consider holding them back a grade. A move even those who supported the bill said schools needed to be careful about using.
I think it's a legitimate intervention, but I also think it's an intervention that needs to be used very sparingly and in specific cases.
Retention is the absolute last resort after we have exhausted all other methods to help struggling readers.
Democratic Senator J.D. Ford questioned why students were having reading issues, saying that needed to be looked at.
Could it be trauma? Could it be a student moving around?
According to Dr. Jenner, close to a quarter of kids who fail the iRead test have missed more than 3.5 weeks of school.
We can invest all the dollars we want, but if you're missing school, then your teachers can only do so much to get you there.
Senate Bill 1 passed out of committee by a vote of 9-4. Lawmakers who voted against it said it needed to address why kids were having reading issues, while also giving schools more time to implement science of reading requirements passed last session. And those who voted in support of the bill said that they heard overwhelmingly from their constituents that they supported holding kids back if they had difficulty reading. Now, we know that literacy is a top issue for lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. It is also at the top of Governor Holcomb's agenda this session, but the way to best address those reading issues clearly coming with different points of view, as we saw today.
It's not just big events. It's not just the All-Star Game. It's just not the Final Four. It's not just the Super Bowl. This is a problem that occurs every day in all communities in Indiana.
The city of Indianapolis has an impressive resume of hosting big events, the Super Bowl, the Indy 500, and next month, the NBA All-Star Game.
And almost every event comes with more concern about an increase in human trafficking. In city after city, year after year, human trafficking is on a rise across this country. And it is most noticeable at big events. But we are warned tonight to be aware that this is a problem in our community all the time.
January is Human Trafficking Prevention Month, and tonight our Rich Nye talks with advocates and lawmakers trying to fight this dark trend.
Victims advocates gathered at the Statehouse Tuesday say human trafficking cases have been reported in every county in Indiana.
I think it's really important not to pay too much attention to what the movies in Hollywood tell you, but to really learn from experts in the field of what trafficking actually looks like, because it is happening in our community. And if you don't know what to look for, if you think it's sensationalized and it's only the white van and someone being snatched from a mall, then you're going to miss it. And so it's important to really understand what it looks like in our community.
Everyone can watch out for the signs of someone who appears to be under the control of someone else who is not their parent or guardian.
The vast majority of human trafficking victims do not identify as such. Many of them do not want to get involved with the criminal justice system. They're in fear. They don't have a place to live. They might have children or elders to care for, and this is the way they feel they have to be living and working in order to feed their families and themselves.
The Indiana Coalition to End Sexual Assault and Human Trafficking wants to reach victims with a message that help and hope are available. Parents can play a huge role in prevention.
Our knowledge is power. The more that we are able to identify social media, gaming apps, internet access that children have unsupervised, and how that sometimes can lead to them being trafficked and communicating with people they may not always know.
Advocates hope lawmakers also address the issue.
One bill introduced at the State House this year would require hotels and motels to provide human traffic awareness training to all of their employees. And that same kind of information would have to be posted at each public lodging establishment.
Another House bill would require school employees to complete child sexual trafficking prevention training. In Indianapolis, Rich Nye, 13 News.
Human trafficking is a growing problem here and across the country.
According to the U.S. Department of Justice, human trafficking increased by 49% between 2011 and 2021. The number of people charged with human trafficking doubled during that same time period.
The National Human Rights Trafficking Hotline says there were 176 victims here in Indiana in 2021. Last year, the Marion County Prosecutor's Office charged 20 people with human trafficking crimes. Federal prosecutors tell us they charged one man and got another convicted in 2023.
So if you or someone you know right now is dealing with human trafficking, we want you to know that there are many resources available. And we have links to where you can report or learn more information or even get help for victims of trafficking. All you have to do is go right now to our website, WTHR.com. We also have this information conveniently posted for you right now in our WTHR News app.
A bill that requires age verification to look at adult websites is one step closer tonight becoming a law here in Indiana.
That's because the Senate overwhelmingly approved the bill just this afternoon. Our Statehouse reporter Emily Longnecker joins us now to talk about how it would work. Hey, Emily.
Yeah, the idea here is you have to be 18 to do a lot of things in Indiana, to vote, to buy cigarettes, and this would put that same age requirement on looking at online porn.
We have children that are seeing, hardcore content before they have their first kiss.
If Senate Bill 17 becomes law, that would change. So how would it work? Under the bill, a third-party company would verify a person's identity and age before that person could access an adult site. That third-party company would be required to erase someone's personal information after their age and ID were verified. If not, the company would face penalties. Supporters of the bill say it protects kids from accessing dangerous content.
You can't go into an MA movie rating if you're under a certain age. You can't go into a porn store if you're under a certain age. You can't go buy a dirty magazine if you're under a certain age. But we have a big loophole where kids can get on the internet, and they know how to do it very well.
Senate Minority Leader Greg Taylor called the bill a noble idea, but said it needs guardrails. Taylor pointed to legal challenges to a similar bill in another state, saying most of the third-party age verification companies are in other countries, and there's nothing to prevent them from selling someone's personal information.
But the bottom line is they still have our information under this age verification.
Taylor was the only senator to vote against the bill. It passed the Senate 44-1. Now this bill heads to the House, where the discussion on it will continue. Supporters of this bill say it's a 21st century solution to the 21st century problem of kids having online access to adult material.
Late this afternoon, state lawmakers got in the House. State lawmakers in the House, got another look at a bill that would define anti-Semitism.
13 News Statehouse reporter Emily Longnecker was in the chamber when the state lawmakers proposed a change to that measure, and she joins us now from the Statehouse with a look at what then happened next. Emily.
Well, there's already been a lot of discussion around this anti-Semitism bill. You'll remember hours of testimony last week when the bill was in front of the House Education Committee. Today, the discussion wasn't that long. Only one amendment was offered, and it was quickly defeated.
Chair, hands down, second reading, House Bill 1002.
House Bill 1002 defines anti-Semitism as discrimination based on religion. The bill's author, Republican Representative Chris Jeter, has said its purpose is to protect Jewish people from discrimination based on their religion in a school environment. According to the Anti-Defamation League, incidents of anti-Semitism have gone up 360% since the October 7th attacks on Israel by Hamas and the war that has followed in Gaza. Supporters of the bill say the rise in incidents makes this bill more urgent than ever.
We see this increase in anti-Semitism, and we know that if we want to fight hate, defining anti-Semitism is a crucial component to fighting hate.
Of course, anti-Semitism is an issue that we care about. We want to see empathy for all communities. I think if we're going to write a bill for one form of discrimination, it needs to include many more.
IU Bloomington senior Malaika Khan says Muslim students calling for a ceasefire in Gaza during protests have faced acts of hate too.
We get called terrorists and stuff like that. We've had people spit at us.
Khan worries if House Bill 1002 becomes law, it will stifle any criticism of Israel, pointing to the recent suspension of a tenured IU professor who she says was punished for his work with students in support of a ceasefire. According to the bill, criticism of Israel, just like criticism of any other country, would not be considered anti-Semitism.
I think we want to make sure that we treat Israel as any other country. We just want to make sure that we're not advocating for the elimination of an entire group of folks, which is I think, really what the bill's targeting.
An amendment to clarify that point was defeated today. For a statement from IU on the suspension of that professor, you can go to our website at WTHR.com. Now the bill is on third read, where amendments can still be offered. The full House will then vote on it. Last session, it passed unanimously out of the House, this same bill. It didn't get anywhere in the Senate, but with the situation in the Middle East this year, certainly the discussion has been very different.
Here in Indiana, the future of the rapid transit blue line now up in the air after lawmakers at the Statehouse heard testimony on a bill that would ban dedicated lanes for any future public transit projects, and that includes Indigo's blue line.
Construction on that line was set to begin sometime in 2025. 13 News reporter Emily Longnecker joins us to talk about the debate that at times got emotional. Emily?
Yeah, people on both sides of this issue feel very strongly about whether the blue line should or shouldn't have dedicated lanes. If Senate Bill 52 becomes law, it would halt any movement forward on the blue line through July 2025 unless Indigo wanted to revamp its project, get rid of dedicated lanes for the blue line, and have shared lanes for buses and vehicles.
This hearing feels like a local government hearing because this is a local government issue.
Indianapolis resident Sean Hurston wants Indigo's blue line to have dedicated lanes, and he wants the state to stay out of it.
For those of you that don't live here, I would urge you not to micromanage our affairs.
Hurston was one of dozens of residents who live near Washington Street, where Indigo plans to build part of its 24-mile blue line connecting Hancock and Hendricks counties.
We need the blue line.
Irvington resident Cassandra Crutchfield isn't worried about the blue line slowing down traffic on Washington Street. She wants that to happen, and the reason is a tragic one.
Then in 2021, my daughter Hannah and I were hit by a car on Washington Street while walking home from school. Hannah did not survive.
Safety was a frequent concern for many who testified against the bill.
I am sick and tired of almost being struck by speeding cars along Washington while walking my dog.
SB 52 had just as many supporters in Thursday's hearing, some of them business owners along Washington Street.
I feel that the designated bus lanes, especially through our historic neighborhood, is going to be a detriment not only to our businesses, but our community as a whole.
We just feel like the construction and the time and it's going to really hurt all the businesses along the corridor.
The bill's author, Republican Senator Aaron Freeman, says if Indigo wants the blue line, it needs a plan for buses and vehicles to share the same lanes.
But the citizens of Indianapolis do not deserve dedicated lanes that are going to so screw up their travel that it's going to almost force people to ride a bus in Indianapolis.
Indigo's interim president and CEO said changing the Blue Line project now would force Indigo to go back to the drawing board and risk losing federal grant money for the project.
I think a one-year moratorium would essentially kill the blue line.
The debate on this bill certainly not over. It passed out of committee today, 7-5. Senator Aaron Freeman saying today that he brought this bill forward this session because he knows he has support in the House to hear this bill if it makes it over there. At the Indiana Statehouse, Emily Longnecker, 13 News.